Somebody asked me an interesting question. Why do Bochum fry out? And as a Bochum myself, what can I do about this? I gave 4 reasons why people fry out. And I'm going to talk about each one and give some insight into some practical solutions. Not any of them are easy and simple. But I want to just preface by stating the obvious. And the obvious is that one of the most important things that every human being needs is attention. Is somebody who cares about them, someone who loves them, someone who takes care of them. I have this theory, I've never proven it or studied it or read it, it's just a theory that I have, that every human being, in order to grow up healthy, has to have one person in their life that they feel is so dedicated to them that they would give their life for them. One person. Usually it's a parent, unusually it's a grandparent, and rarely it's a mentor or a teacher. But every child grows up and succeeds if he feels like somebody thinks about him, that he's not ignored. Often, the trouble that we have with our children begins with neglect. Neglect means that if they don't make trouble, or they're not outstanding in some way, we just leave them be. It's human nature. The wheel that squeaks the most gets the oil. And one of the most difficult things as a parent and as a teacher and as a mentor is to notice those children that seem to get ignored, either because they don't make enough trouble or because they're not outstanding enough. Everybody needs to feel like somebody thinks they're important. And this starts in the earliest of ages, and of course it becomes excessively challenging when they become adolescents, because the kids do not respond overtly to overt affection, meaning it's a trick when you're dealing with adolescents. If you show them that you care about them, they have to show you that they don't care about you caring about them. It's complicated. But in the end, this is the bottom line. Everybody needs to feel like someone is thinking about them. And for a boy or a girl not to fry out, they need to have someone in their life, or more than one person in their life, or as the expression is, a village of people in their lives, who for one moment don't stop thinking about them, and that they're aware that someone is aware of them, someone is concerned about them, somebody's worried about them, someone loves them unconditionally. So let's talk about each one. The first thing I said was Taiva, right? We live in a time that there is so much opportunity for pleasure that's so easy and requires so little effort and so little work, and it sucks a person's life out. It sucks a person's life out. The cell phone, even if we're not doing literally things that are asur, is quick, easy entertainment. Quick, easy entertainment that allows us to avoid the realities of life. And the realities of life are hard. But they're supposed to be. Because the hardships of life make us work, and make us mention, and make us grow up. Make us work, make us yidden, make us chassidim. So a boy who is struggling with being a yeshiva bacha because of nisyonis needs to embrace that age-old idea called iskafia, self-control. The hard thing about self-control is that you can't teach it and you can't mandate it. You have to embrace it. Which means that a boy who's suffering from nisyonis, and these nisyonis are sucking his will out. I mean, he's a good boy, but because he's distracted, the distractions he's experiencing weaken him, they tire him, and he doesn't know will and koyach. When he wants to actually get up, and he wants to actually learn, when he wants to actually focus, he doesn't have that ability. He has to become aware that he has a problem, and he has to develop a sense of seriousness and urgency about this problem. And the only way it's going to stop is if he learns to hate the person he becomes, because how these indulgences have weakened him. And he needs to fight with them. Literally, you need to fight with them. We all try to find sophisticated and sensitive means of dealing with our challenges, but the bottom line is you got to fight. And fighting in the realm of iskafia means, most importantly, will. It's not about putting blocks on the phone, you'll get around them. It's not about having people watch what you do. You're going to stop caring about that. It's about your own will. It's about realizing how this is terribly destructive to me, and saying, I don't want this. I want a different life. And if I'm going to have a different life, I'm going to have to will myself out of this position by, first of all, stopping to indulge in this behavior which is so destructive to me, and then fighting with myself to put myself on a better footing. And people do this all the time. It's not simple. I should say it's not easy, but it's simple. It's a black and white issue. If you give an inch, you're finished. You have to appreciate how destructive giving into things that are weak and weaken us and take our life away, which is what I like to translate the word Taiva in English as weakness. We're dealing with a time, an age of unprecedented Taiva. There's so many things all around us that weaken us. And if we're going to win the fight to be a mensch, just to be a human being, we have to be strong. And if need be, we have to acknowledge that we are compromised from our earlier indulgences, and we need to earnestly and consistently fight and do whatever it takes. If you need help, if you need support, but you need to appreciate that this is not going to end by a hachlata that you do for one day and then you quickly go back into your old ways. It's got to be an ongoing fight, and I guess the root of that ongoing fight is the full appreciation of how terrible this indulgence is and how destructive and how long-lasting the consequences of it are, and you have to fight the good fight. Now, as far as the second thing that I said, which is boys who fry out because they're failing in schools, this is obviously much, much more complicated. And the short answer to the question is you're not allowed to let a boy fail. And of course there's a person fail. There's two stages here. Younger stages, it's more on the parents, and older stages, it's more on the child. But a person is not allowed to be a failure. When a kid goes to school and doesn't do well, you can't leave it alone. Even though the Gemara says that there's an idea of yeshiv, a boy who's not succeeding in learning supports those who are succeeding in learning. That only works if the boy is happy about that, meaning to say he's gaining something from the yeshiva in Chassidish ways, in makif ways. But more and more this doesn't work in the world for all kinds of reasons, including the fact that the kids are far more individual and they're much more aware of their need to personally succeed and others. So the bottom line is, if the kids are doing well in school, you have to do something about it. When the kids are little, the problems are small, and we tend to leave them alone. When the kids are big, the problems are big, and we tend to feel overwhelmed. But you're never allowed to leave a problem unsolved. Meaning, if a kid is not able to learn, or a kid finds no interest in learning, something has to be done about it. You need to find a way to motivate that child, whatever it takes. I think one of the greatest things we do for our children is show them that learning is not impossible. But in order for us to show them that learning is not impossible, we have to break the learning down to their level. One of the greatest, most exciting experiences a child has is when a teacher shows his student or her student that the child can do it. Because oftentimes the child feels like he's overmatched, like he cannot do it. And if you have to teach slower, I've been saying forever that the learning Gemara is very hard. And if people are going to succeed in learning Gemara, there cannot be a rush. There cannot be a rush. The most important thing in learning Gemara is not how many pages we cover, but how the child begins to appreciate the process and to use his mind. And often, it's a question of slowing down and being patient and showing the child that they could learn. And showing the child that they could learn helps them learn, and helps them learn, motivates them to learn, and motivates them, so it makes them desire to learn. I guess the beginning of this process is to make sure the child can read. First read the language, then understands what it means, and then being able to interpret it, and then being able to comprehend it. These are all steps in learning that should start in the earliest of ages. And sometimes kids begin to show failure at very early ages. But whatever stage a child is at, if a child is failing, we have to go back to where the child is and raise them up from the place they are, which is very difficult. It's difficult for the parent, it's difficult for the teacher, and it's most difficult for the student. But to leave a kid alone is the worst thing of all. Now, as far as the child doesn't find the learning interesting, that's a very tricky thing. And it's very hard to answer such a question in such a format. You have to find something that they do find meaning in. And you have to be prepared to make whatever adaptations are needed, even things that are unusual, different, maybe even controversial, to motivate a child. Because the worst thing is an unmotivated child. The worst thing is an unmotivated child. Because an unmotivated child is a failed adult. I'll do the next two in the next segment.